First story. OP cheated with her husband's golden child's brother, thinking he was her true love, burned every bridge with her family, and is now regretting everything and having a breakdown. Her new husband is cheating with her best friend. I guess I've made a mess of my life and I'm not even sure where to begin. For context, I'm 30F and I've been married to Ryan 32M for the past 3 years. Before that, I was married to James, Ryan's older brother, for 5 years. Leaving James for Ryan felt like the right thing at the time. I love James, but I just couldn't connect with him the way I thought I should. He was sweet, caring, and always made time for me, but something was missing. I felt like he didn't get me emotionally, and after years of trying to make it work, I started to feel trapped. That's when Ryan came into the picture. He was everything James wasn't. Charming, passionate, spontaneous. He made me feel alive in a way I never had before. It started innocently, just casual conversations at family gatherings, but soon, we were texting late at night. He told me he'd always admired me, that he thought I deserved someone who truly understood me. He made me believe I was settling with James, and for the first time I realized I didn't have to. I'll admit the way things ended with James wasn't fair. He didn't see it coming, and when I told him I wanted a divorce, he begged me to reconsider. He said he loved me and would do whatever it took to make me happy. But by then I'd already made up my mind. I told him I didn't feel the connection I needed, and that I thought it was best for both of us to move on. I didn't tell him about Ryan. I thought it would hurt him more than necessary. Ryan and I got together almost immediately after the divorce was finalized, which caused a lot of tension in the family. James's parents were surprisingly okay with it. They've always doted on Ryan, but James was devastated. He cut contact with me completely, and I don't blame him. My own family was divided. Some thought I was brave for following my heart, while others called me selfish. At the time, I didn't care. I believed I was doing the right thing for myself. For a while, everything with Ryan was amazing. He treated me like a queen, constantly showering me with affection and attention. We traveled, had spontaneous date nights, and shared a kind of passion I'd never experienced before. I felt like I'd finally found what I'd been missing. But now, 3 years in, things feel off. Ryan's not the man I thought he was. He's been distant lately, working late, being secretive with his phone, and brushing me off when I ask what's going on. He's started going on business trips that seem suspiciously timed, and I've found a few things that don't add up. Like a second phone and receipts for expensive dinners I wasn't invited to. When I confronted him about the second phone, he laughed it off and said it was for work. He told me I was being paranoid and that I needed to trust him. But his reaction felt so rehearsed, like he'd been expecting the question. And the distance between us is undeniable. He barely touches me anymore, and when I try to talk about my feelings, he either gets defensive or tells me I'm overthinking things. I don't understand how we got here. I gave up everything to be with Ryan. I thought I was choosing the man who truly loved me, who would make me feel wanted and understood. And now I feel like I'm losing him too. I hate to admit it, but sometimes I wonder if I made a mistake leaving James. He might not have been the most exciting man, but he loved me. He would never have done something like this. And yet, I couldn't connect with him the way I wanted to. Am I just doomed to never be satisfied? I'm at a loss. Part of me wants to confront Ryan again, demand answers. But another part of me is scared of what I might find. And honestly, I don't know how to handle the fallout if it turns out he's cheating. I've already burned so many bridges, I don't even know who I can turn to for support. What do I do? Should I confront Ryan and risk shattering everything we've built? Or should I let it go and trust that he's telling the truth? Am I wrong for feeling like I deserve more than this? Update. Thank you to everyone who responded to my first post, even though some of the comments were harsh. I've been thinking a lot about what you all said, and I decided I couldn't keep living in this limbo. If Ryan was cheating, I needed to know. I started by paying closer attention to his behavior. Over the past week, he's been even more secretive. He started taking his work calls in the garage or going outside, and he's glued to his phone more than ever. Last Friday, he told me he had to go on another business trip, this time for the entire weekend. Something about it felt off. He didn't give me the usual details about where he was going or what the trip was for. When I asked, he got defensive, snapping, "Why don't you trust me?" That was the final straw. I told him I didn't trust him because he'd been acting shady for months. I brought up the second phone again and the receipts for those fancy dinners. His reaction was classic Ryan. He laughed, called me paranoid, and said, "You're going to drive yourself crazy looking for problems where there aren't any." Then he stormed out of the house. I couldn't sit there doing nothing, so I decided to investigate. I went through his stuff while he was gone. And before anyone judges me for that, what choice did I have? I needed answers. In his suitcase I found something that made my stomach drop. A receipt for a jewelry store. It was dated just last week, and the item was a necklace, a delicate gold chain with a heart-shaped pendant. It wasn't me. He hadn't given me jewelry since our first anniversary, and even then it was something much simpler. That night, I tracked his location using the Find My Phone feature on his laptop. He wasn't at the hotel he told me he was staying at. Instead, he was at a beachside resort 2 hours away. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I stared at the screen for hours, debating whether to drive there and catch him in the act. But I didn't have the courage. The next day, I vented to my sister, who's one of the few people who supported my decision to leave James. She was sympathetic but blamed me, saying, "I traded stability for excitement, and now I'm seeing what comes with that," almost implying that I deserved it. Her words stung. I wanted her to tell me I was right to be upset. That Ryan was a scumbag for doing this to me. Instead, she reminded me that I'd made choices that hurt a lot of people. And now I was feeling that same pain. After Ryan got back from his trip, I confronted him again. This time, I showed him the location tracking and the jewelry receipt. His face went pale, and for a moment I thought he was going to confess. But instead he turned it around on me. "Are you seriously stalking me now?" he yelled. "Do you even hear yourself? You've completely lost it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked him straight up if he was cheating, and he said no. "But if you keep treating me like a criminal, maybe I should." That was it. I told him I couldn't live like this anymore, and if he didn't come clean, I'd start making plans to leave. He didn't say a word, he just grabbed his keys and left the house. Later that night I got a call from James's mom. She told me that Ryan had called her, upset, saying I was accusing him of horrible things and threatening to leave him. She said I needed to remember how lucky I was to have Ryan, and that I shouldn't ruin a good thing over silly suspicions. Hearing her defend him like that made me feel like I was losing my mind. How could she take his side without even hearing mine? But at the same time, it made me wonder if I was overreacting. Maybe I was reading too much into things. Maybe I was pushing him away with my paranoia. I don't know what to believe anymore. Part of me thinks Ryan's lying and trying to cover his tracks. But another part of me wonders if I'm sabotaging my own happiness. What would you do in my shoes? Should I keep pushing for answers, or should I let it go and try to rebuild trust? Update 2. I've been sitting with all of this for a while now, and honestly I feel like I'm caught in some twisted karmic loop. I don't know whether to feel angry, ashamed, or just numb. After my last update I decided I needed answers. A friend who works at a nearby resort confirmed my fears. Ryan wasn't alone during his trip. Emma was with him. Emma isn't just some random woman. She's a family friend, someone I've known for years. She's been to countless family gatherings, helped me plan my wedding to Ryan, and even comforted me when things were rocky early in my marriage. I trusted her. The thought of her being part of this betrayal broke something in me I didn't even know was still intact. When Ryan came home, I confronted him. I wasn't calm or collected, I was shaking with anger, hurt, and humiliation. I brought up Emma, the second phone, the jewelry receipt, everything. He didn't deny being with her. But he claimed it wasn't what I thought. He said they'd just been talking, reconnecting, and things had gotten complicated. At first, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this wasn't physical, that it was just a stupid mistake that could be fixed. But then I thought about the lies, the distance, and the fact that he'd been hiding this for months. Whether it was physical or not doesn't even matter anymore. He broke my trust. The worst part is that I can't even pretend I didn't see this coming. I left James for Ryan because I thought I was chasing something better, something I deserved. But the truth is I broke someone else's trust first. I destroyed my marriage with James to be with Ryan. And now I'm sitting here wondering how I let myself believe that kind of betrayal wouldn't come back around. James found out about all of this probably through the family grapevine and he called me. I wasn't expecting it, and hearing his voice after all these years was like a punch to the gut. He didn't yell or berate me. But the disappointment in his tone was enough to make me want to crawl into a hole. He told me he wasn't surprised. He said something about how Ryan has always been like this, selfish, impulsive, and unable to think about anyone but himself. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to apologize to James for everything I'd put him through. But it felt hollow. What good are apologies now after all this time? That conversation has been eating at me. I can't stop thinking about how much I hurt James, how I justified it by telling myself I deserved more, only to end up in the exact situation I swore I was escaping. Ryan's family hasn't been much help either. His mom called me, but instead of offering support, she said I needed to look at the bigger picture and consider forgiveness. She made it sound like I was the one overreacting, like Ryan's actions weren't that bad. It's hard to explain, but it felt like she was brushing me off, like this wasn't worth acknowledging because it was inconvenient for them. And then there's Emma. I can't stop thinking about her. Why her? She knew everything, how much I sacrificed to be with Ryan, how I burned bridges with James and some of my family. I keep asking myself how she could look me in the eye all those times we talked and still do this. But then I think about myself and how I justified my own betrayal of James. I told myself it was okay because I was following my heart. But maybe Emma told herself the same thing. It doesn't make it right. But it makes me realize how easily we lie to ourselves to justify hurting others. Right now, I don't know what's next. Part of me wants to leave Ryan and never look back. But another part wonders if I have the strength to start over again. I already lost so much when I left James, and I don't know if I can rebuild from scratch. Reddit. I don't expect anyone to feel sorry for me. I know I made choices that hurt people, and maybe this is just karma catching up with me. But I can't help wondering, where do I go from here? How do you pick up the pieces when you're the one who shattered them in the first place? Update. It's been a few weeks since I last posted, and I've had a lot of time to reflect. The past month has been a whirlwind of anger, regret, sadness, and surprisingly a small sense of relief. After my confrontation with Ryan, I realized there was no coming back from this. Even if I could forgive him for what he did, I'd never be able to trust him again. Every time he looked at his phone, every time he left the house, I'd wonder who he was with and what he wasn't telling me. That's no way to live. I told him I wanted a separation. He didn't argue or try to fight for me. He just said he understood and that he didn't want to make things harder for either of us. Hearing those words crushed me. I thought part of me still wanted him to fight for me, to show me I was worth something to him. But now I think I was holding on to an illusion of the man I thought he was, not the man he really is. I've moved out and am staying with my sister for now. It hasn't been easy. My sister has been supportive, but there's an undercurrent of "I warned you" in her tone that stings, even though I know it's true. She's helping me figure out the logistics of separating from Ryan. But emotionally, I feel like I'm on my own. Ryan hasn't reached out since I left. Not once. I don't know if he's with Emma now, and honestly I don't want to know. The thought of them together still makes my stomach turn. But I've realized it doesn't matter anymore. They deserve each other. One of the hardest parts has been coming to terms with my role in all of this. I can't keep pretending that I'm just a victim in this situation. I made choices that hurt people, James especially, and I justified those choices by convincing myself I was following my heart. But now, looking back, I see how selfish I was. I hurt a man who loved me deeply because I thought I deserved something better. And in chasing that fantasy, I destroyed a stable, loving marriage for someone who never really cared about me. I did reach out to James. I wasn't sure if he'd even want to hear from me. But I felt like I owed him an apology. When he picked up, I could hear the hesitation in his voice, like he wasn't sure why I was calling. I kept it short and told him I was sorry, not just for leaving, but for how I left, for blindsiding him, and for not giving him the respect he deserved. He didn't say much, but he did tell me he appreciated the apology. He also mentioned he's seeing someone now, and while that stung a little, I'm genuinely happy for him. He deserves someone who will cherish him the way I couldn't. Hearing that he's moved on gave me a strange sense of closure. It doesn't erase what I did, but it gives me hope that at least one of us is finding happiness. As for me, I'm trying to figure out what's next. For so long I defined myself through my relationships, first with James, then with Ryan. Now, for the first time, I'm on my own and it's terrifying. But it's also freeing in a way. I have the chance to rebuild my life. And this time I want to do it right. I've started therapy, which has been eye-opening. My therapist is helping me unpack a lot of the patterns that led me here: my tendency to seek validation through others, my fear of settling, my inability to be content with what I have. It's a long road, but I'm committed to learning and growing. To anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation, take a hard look at what you're giving up before you make a decision you can't take back. The grass isn't always greener, it's just different. Thank you to everyone who offered advice and perspective, even the harsh truths. I needed to hear them. And they've helped me more than you know. Second story. Entitled Mill, with my husband's support, cut my hair to humiliate me for cheating on my husband, assuming I'm having an affair with my gay coworker. So, I'm still processing this, but I need to get it off my chest. Last night, I woke up and realized someone had butchered my hair. One side is a jagged pixie cut, and the other side hangs awkwardly past my shoulder. At first, I thought I was losing my mind, maybe I sleepwalked or something, but no. I confronted my husband Tim because he's been acting weird lately, but he denied it. Then he drops this bombshell. My mom, she might have done it. Apparently, my Mill, let's call her Diane, is convinced I've been cheating on Tim. Why? Because last week, she saw me having lunch with a coworker. For the record, the coworker Kyle is gay and we were literally talking about work. But Diane decided I must be having an affair. And instead of, talking to me or Tim, she broke into our house in the middle of the night with scissors and went full Edward Scissorhands on my hair. This morning I confronted her. At first she played innocent. But when I pressed her, she literally said, "Well, maybe now you'll think twice before humiliating my son." I was fuming. I told her Kyle isn't even into women. But she just rolled her eyes and said something like, "That's what they all say." I didn't even know how to respond to that level of delusion. Tim is horrified and apologetic, but I'm struggling here. This woman violated my personal space, destroyed my hair, and acted like she was in the right. I want to go no contact with her, but Tim is stuck between me and his mom, and I feel like this is going to be a huge blow-up in our marriage. Any advice? Because I'm honestly at a loss here. TLDR. My Mill cut my hair in my sleep, because she thinks I'm cheating on my husband. I'm not. Now I don't know how to handle her or my marriage. Edit. My husband and I will be going to my Mill's tomorrow to talk to her about the situation again. Hopefully everyone will be calmed down by then, and I won't have to threaten legal action. Thank you for all the support and suggestions. I will keep them in mind. Update. After the conversation we had with Diane this morning, I noticed my husband Tim was acting weird. At first I thought it was just guilt about standing up to his mom, but it felt like more than that. He's been avoiding eye contact and getting defensive when I bring up what happened. Earlier I couldn't take it anymore, so I sat him down and told him he needed to be 100% honest with me about everything. That's when he dropped the bombshell. Apparently, Diane didn't come up with the haircut idea on her own. Tim admitted that he knew about it ahead of time and even helped her. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. He said he truly thought I was cheating on him with Kyle, my gay coworker, because Diane had convinced him that there was too much evidence to ignore. When she suggested cutting my hair as some kind of weird punishment, he didn't stop her. In fact, he let her into our house that night while I was sleeping. Tim said he didn't want to confront me directly because he wasn't ready for the truth. So instead he let his mother do this insane thing to me, thinking it would force me to come clean. Afterward, when I didn't admit to cheating, he started to realize he might have been wrong. But by then he didn't know how to tell me what he'd done. He kept saying, "I'm so sorry, I was just confused." But I honestly don't know how to process this. This wasn't just Diane acting like a lunatic, this was both of them. And my own husband betrayed me in one of the most humiliating ways possible. I packed a bag and am staying with a friend tonight while I figure out what to do. I don't know if I can ever trust Tim again after this. It's not just the haircut. It's the fact that he didn't talk to me, believe the worst about me without any proof, and actively participated in something so cruel and violating. As for Diane, she's officially dead to me. I've already told Tim that I don't want her in my life ever again, regardless of what happens between us. Right now I'm torn. Part of me wants to file a police report on both of them for what they did, but I'm scared of how messy it will get. Another part of me just wants to cut ties and move on. But that feels like letting them off too easy. I don't know what my next step is, but I do know this. I deserve better than this. Thank you to everyone who has supported me through this. Your comments and advice have meant the world, and I'm truly grateful for the kindness and understanding. It's helping me find the strength to figure out what comes next. Edit 2 to everyone saying this is fake. I don't know how to make you believe me, and honestly I shouldn't have to. I'm sitting here, crying in my friend's guest room, completely broken, trying to make sense of how my life has fallen apart in the span of 24 hours. My husband, the person I thought I could trust the most, betrayed me in the most humiliating way possible. His mother violated me in my sleep, and now strangers are telling me my pain isn't real. I wish with everything in me that this wasn't real. I wish I wasn't sitting here trying to figure out how to rebuild my life, how to ever trust someone again, or how to even face the people around me after this. I've barely eaten, I've been shaking all day, and I feel like my world is crumbling beneath me. I turned to Reddit because I didn't know where else to go. I needed advice, a sense of support, something to help me hold myself together. But these accusations, they're just making me feel even more alone. If you can't believe me, fine, but please don't make this harder than it already is. I wouldn't wish this pain on anyone. Third story. I cheated with my ex and my fiancé found out. Now my fiancé ghosted me, saying I ruined his life. I thought he would return like normal people do. But he didn't and painted me like a monster, exposing my affair. Now my parents won't give it SHT about me. My career is ending while my ex is blackmailing me. I don't know if writing this out will make me feel better, but I've been spiraling and I just need to get this off my chest. 2 weeks ago my fiancé Mark 31M found out I cheated on him with my ex, Ryan 30M. I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I didn't expect it to explode the way it did. Now he's gone and I haven't heard from him since. Mark and I had been together for 3 years. We were engaged for 7 months and up until recently I thought everything was fine. He's the kind of person you'd call a good guy, without hesitation, stable, hard-working, loyal. He was my safe place, my support system. When I decided to quit my job and focus on lifestyle blogging full-time, he was the first one to say, "You can do this, I'll help." But maybe that was the problem. Everything about him was predictable, reliable, stable. Our life together felt like a straight line. Meanwhile, I was craving excitement, spontaneity, something that made me feel alive again. Enter Ryan. Ryan was my first love, my bad boy phase from years ago. We were always fire and chaos, arguing 1 minute and making up the next. He's everything Mark isn't. Free-spirited, wild, unpredictable. I hadn't thought about him in years until he messaged me out of nowhere on Instagram. At first it was just catching up. We joked about old times and talked about how different life was now. I kept telling myself it was harmless. But then he suggested we meet for drinks, and something in me wanted to say yes. So I did. 1 drink turned into 3, then 4. We laughed and reminisced, and before I knew it we were back at his apartment. It was like muscle memory. For a brief moment, I wasn't boring, dependable Mark's fiancée. I was the carefree girl I used to be. But when I got home, I saw Mark sitting on the couch, waiting for me. I froze. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at me like he was trying to figure me out. I went to bed without explaining myself, and the next day I woke up with this pit in my stomach. I thought I could keep it a secret, but Mark found out anyway. He's too smart not to. Maybe it was the way I'd been pulling away, or maybe I was careless with my phone. I'll never forget the moment he confronted me. It wasn't just anger, he was furious, yes, but it was more than that. He was devastated. He yelled, and I'd never seen him like that before. Mark's always been the calm, rational one, but in that moment he was breaking. He kept asking me why and saying things like, "I gave you everything, I trusted you." His voice cracked, and he just kept pacing back and forth, holding his head like he couldn't process what was happening. I tried to explain, but everything I said sounded pathetic even to me. He didn't want to hear it. "You've destroyed me," he said. "I can't even look at you right now. Then just like that he started packing. I begged him not to go but he wouldn't stop. His hands were shaking as he threw his clothes into a bag, and when I tried to grab his arm, he pulled away like I was poison. Before he left, he turned to me and said, "You've ruined my life. You don't deserve to hear from me again." And then he slammed the door. I thought he'd cool off and come back eventually, but it's been 2 weeks and I haven't heard a word. No calls, no texts, he even blocked me on social media. I tried reaching out to his brother, but all he said was, "Mark doesn't want to talk to you. Respect his wishes." I feel so lost. I know I messed up. I know I hurt him in ways I can't even understand, but the way he's just disappeared, it's killing me. Part of me wants to show up at his brother's place and beg him to talk to me, but another part of me knows he might never want to see me again. I don't even know how to process what I'm feeling. I miss him, but I also wonder if I'm just chasing a version of him that I lost the second I made that mistake. I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself, but I also don't know if I can live with this silence. Update. I didn't think things could get worse, but they have. Mark didn't just leave me, he completely erased me from his life, and the fallout has been hitting me like a truck. I didn't realize how much of my world was tied to him until he was gone, and now I'm left picking up the pieces alone. After Mark walked out, I thought I had time to figure out what to do, how to apologize, how to make him see I wasn't just some heartless monster. But he had no intention of letting me back in. He's gone full ghost. He blocked me on everything: his phone, social media, even email. I tried reaching out through his brother and a mutual friend, but both of them shut me down immediately. His brother actually told me, "You don't exist to him anymore, and he wants it to stay that way." I can't even describe how much that hurt. I've spent the past few weeks trying to keep myself together, but things have spiraled. My blogging work, something I poured years into, has taken a hit, because I can barely focus. I missed deadlines and flub collaborations, and now brands are pulling back. Without Mark, who used to handle a lot of the financial stuff, I'm realizing how unprepared I was for any of this. He always took of the rent, bills, and logistics while I focused on my content, and now I'm drowning. But that's not even the worst of it. A few days ago, Ryan started texting me again. At first, I ignored him. I thought cutting him off would help me focus on repairing my life. But he wouldn't let up. He started with, "You can't ghost me like this," and escalated to sending pictures of us from that night. I begged him to stop, but he didn't care. He started threatening to leak the photos if I didn't meet up with him. I panicked. I went to meet him, hoping I could reason with him and make him leave me alone. Instead, he had this smug, triumphant look on his face, like he'd already won. He said, "You came back to me, didn't you? You always do." That's when it hit me: Ryan never cared about me. I was just another ego boost for him, a trophy he could hold over Mark's head. He's already told people about our night together, including some mutual acquaintances who are now spreading it around. My reputation is in shambles, and I feel like I'm walking around with a scarlet letter. Mutual friends told me my fiancé threw himself into work, and has been hitting the gym, looking better than ever. He's staying with his brother for now, but is already planning to move into his own place. People are rallying around him, praising him for cutting me off and refusing to take me back. I know I deserve the consequences of my actions, but the reality of losing him is crushing me. Mark wasn't just my fiancé, he was my foundation. Now I'm realizing that I took him for granted, thinking he'd always be there no matter what. I destroyed the best thing in my life for a fleeting thrill with someone who doesn't even respect me. I can't sleep. I can't eat, and my family is worried about me. My mom, who I thought would understand, told me she's disappointed in me and doesn't know how to help me anymore. My best friend Leela has also distanced herself. Right now, I'm sitting in the apartment Mark and I used to share, surrounded by memories of a life I destroyed. I don't know how to move forward, or if I even can. I've lost everything, and for what? A moment of excitement that cost me the love of my life and my own self-respect. I don't even know why I'm posting this. Maybe I'm hoping for advice, or maybe I just need to hear from someone who's been in my shoes. All I know is I can't keep living like this. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.